Find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
Podmoth.
Dans notre quotidien, ces surfaits
Located on the edges of your radio static, you've stumbled upon the Lost Signal, your podcast destination for tales of horror and the macabre, brought to life with voice acting and sound effects. New episodes are released every 2 weeks on Monday on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever else you get your podcasts. Join us, won't you?
Hey, Twisted listeners, I'm Cindy.
And I'm Diva.
And this is Twisted Listeners, a podcast about murder.
And Liz.
And we're coming to you across the country again. I'm in LA. Diva's in Boston.
I am, yes, overlooking the lovely city of Boston. I was going to say like a landmark, but I don't really know any of them. So just the whole city. So it's very exciting. Yeah. I'm had a good trip, but I am very ready to be home on my couch with a blankie and my cat applied to me.
You come home tomorrow, right?
Yes, I'll be home tomorrow night.
Nice. Congratulations. God. So sorry we're a little bit late. We've had really low listeners this month, and I'm wondering if it's because...
You always say that. I think you're just a type A hard on yourself because it's not that bad, dude. I looked at the numbers, they're not that bad. You're just really hard on yourself.
I think it's because we're posting shit at random ass times. I don't know. That
I don't think so.
I
don't think so. I think it just ebbs and flows, and I think you're hard on yourself.
All right. Well, anyway, we'll try to be better about getting them out on time, but we do have lives. We appreciate your support. We love you all. This is part 2 of horrific deaths, people who were burned alive.
Yes.
This is fucked up, man. This is
a light and cheery topic. Yep.
You know, I want to point out that all 4 of our cases are young women. That's pretty, like, it seemed from our list, it was either young women or groups. So there's very few men.
Kind of like murder by arson, lighting a whole thing on fire. That was the other kind of category we didn't really do, but we could have done. Which honestly could be its own list, like murder arsons, like could be its own thing. Yeah. That's kind of a different thing than lighting an individual on fire, right?
Yes, agreed. And there were quite a few in there that were pretty fucking horrific, but those are hard to cover in a shorter amount of time. Like, I guess having a half an hour would be fine.
I mean, there's some that are like less involved that we did. Yeah. I think there was one I forget that I did. There was that place in New York.
The Happy Land nightclub?
No, it was different.
Because that one was fucked up. Anyway, there's lots of these stories, so maybe we'll do a part 2 at some point. But for now...
Needless to say, it is the vast majority of the people burned alive, one-to-one, individual to individual, are women.
Yes, and pretty young women, so it's pretty fucked up. Yep. I'm not saying, like, pretty as in attractive. I'm saying like fairly young.
Pretty young. Gotcha.
Yeah, they're pretty young.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Anyway, all right. So if you'd like to join us on Patreon, it's patreon.com/twistedlisters. If you'd like to join us on TikTok, it's @twistedlisters. If you would like to join us on Instagram, you can do that at
Twisted Listers PCast.
If you would like to send us an email with case suggestions, you can do that at
twistedlisterspod@gmail.com.
And if you would like to check out our website, you can do that at
twistedlisterspod.com.
Please like, rate, review, share with your friends.
Yeah.
We're getting lots of reviews. It's really great. Always want more, though. I'm gluttonous on top of everything else. So join us everywhere. but let's get moving.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Let's do it. All right.
So I'm starting us off. This one is not the longest case, and I'll explain why. There's not as much information listed. Are you showing me like a vampire bear? You know?
Yeah, he's a bloody bear. He's called Gloomy Bear. He's from Japan, and he has blood on his claws and on his mouth because he eats humans alive.
I love that is your child's toy. It's very cute.
Well, it was mine, but I gave it to him. Anyway, okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So I'll explain why there's not as much information about this case, but I'll tell you everything I could find. It is fucking horrible nonetheless. This is a case of Maggie Long. And I'm going to say up top that it is unsolved. I'm so sorry, Cindy.
Oh, come on.
But it should fucking be solved. It's one of those like most wanted list things as well. Like top most wanted fugitives. We just don't know who we're looking for yet. So this happened in Bailey, Colorado in 2017. It's a very recent case.
Yeah.
Maggie at the time was 17. She's a senior in high school.
Oh my God.
Yep. She is a normal, friendly, really pretty young girl who was pretty as in beautiful. And she was super close with her family, including her parents and her older sister, Connie. She was really active across different things in her school. She's super into theater. She was really into volunteering. I'm just like, normally I don't go as much into the bio of someone, but I thought all these details were like heart-wrenching, like how she's the most wholesome kid. She actually would spend her birthday every single year making sandwiches for the homeless.
Oh my God.
And then handing them out. Like, she is so wholesome.
Oh my God. That's fucking...
Yeah.
You know, because you can get stories of people where everybody's like, oh, they were so great. And it's like, yes, we never want to besmirch the dead. And I'm sure everybody is great, but like, this is like some like, here's the receipts kind of shit. Like, she's actually...
She went out of her way to be amazing.
Yeah, next level.
She also worked really hard at her parents' restaurant, and she was putting herself through a special theater program at the school with her earnings. So she was like working her way through that. Her parents were born in a refugee camp in North Vietnam during the Vietnam War.
Wow. And
they immigrated so they're kind of like a part of a community of Chinese/Vietnamese immigrants. They immigrated to the US during the war with their families, and then they went on to kind of literally do the whole American dream shtick, which is fake, but hey, they did it.
Yeah, good for them.
They opened 2 Chinese restaurants and a liquor store, so they had kind of like a little mini, not rich people, but their own thing going on.
Right.
They raised their family in this giant house in kind of a rural area just outside of Bailey. Their address is like, it's on the murder map. Their address, spoiler alert, the address is on like something County Road 43. So that gives you a sense of how rural we're talking.
Okay, yeah. So they're like really removed from other people and okay.
Yeah. And just to give you a sense of the family, like there will be guns involved in the story that are the family. So like that's it's kind of like the country, you know, it's the kind of vibe. Okay.
Got it.
So the night of December 1st, 2017, we know that Maggie went to go buy snacks for the VIP lounge of a high school concert she was helping out with, which is like tugs at my heartstrings because I literally used to do that and go buy the snacks for the intermission at the high school plays.
So
that's what she was doing. And she was supposed to go do this errand and come back with the snacks, and she never comes back to her high school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So fast forward some amount of time. I don't know how exactly. But a tenant that apparently I wasn't clear if they rented out a part of the home or sure it was like an in-law suite, right? Like a separate structure entirely, but they have a tenant who calls 911 to report that there's intruders inside Maggie's family home, quote unquote, causing damage.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So some kind of robbers. A short while later, a fire is also called in. Okay. And when the police arrive, the house is burning down, essentially. It is very on fire.
Yeah. Okay.
And people had separately, again, I already said that, called in the fire. So when the fire is put out, this is a little bit murky here. I had to like rewrite the section twice. But when the fire is put out, technically remains are found right away. But oddly, only 6 days later, on December 7th, is Maggie formally identified. And they kind of weirdly deceive the public and say that she's missing, and they didn't find any remains at the property. But they actually did.
Huh. So that means they have like some sort of lead or something they're thinking may have happened, or what?
No, I don't know why they just lied to the public. There's a lot of confusion around this. At first I kept thinking, oh, they didn't discover the remains until the 7th day, but that's not the case, I think.
Huh.
Yeah, the police don't want the public to know a lot as well in this case. That's kind of going to be a theme. And whether that's good or bad, I don't know.
Right.
Usually it's bad.
Right. Yeah.
But again, they announced it was Maggie 6 days later, and she has essentially been burned alive. That's the topic of our week. Yeah. So the killers who did this stole some of the family's guns. And none of this is announced right now. It's announced later, but I'm just sort of smushing it all together for clarity. But they stole a handgun and an assault rifle, so they have quite a lot of guns.
Okay.
They also stole ammo and an entire safe.
So just the safe, like they couldn't open it, so they just took it.
Yes. Okay. And they also stole some miscellaneous jade figurines, which sounds like an afterthought and something they thought might be valuable because they're dumb.
Yeah, I'm like, first of all, they're not, but
they're
also
not
like,
that. No, they're not. Unless they're like ancient from like the 3rd century or something. Like
to me, like now I'm like, oh, so it was somebody in her high school.
I mean, well, okay, we'll get to that. We can hypothesize. But what's really frustrating is I think they just missed the suspects leaving. Because apparently someone does see them drive away, like driving really crazy. Because later on we get car description, a car description. So
okay,
someone did see them driving away, and I'm saying them because it's plural.
It is for sure.
Yes, for sure. And apparently the scene illustrates that some kind of physical struggle had taken place between Maggie and the killers.
Okay.
And the language across all the reports is really disturbing because it specifies Maggie was set on fire, not just the house.
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, she just died in a house fire on accident. It was targeted to kill her.
Ignited her. Yeah. Oh, my God.
That was their intent. So the initial theory that may or may not be the case, but it's strongly possible, is that basically she walked in on the men burglarizing the home.
Okay.
And then they killed her subsequently.
Right.
The tenant horrifically also had texted Maggie's sister, and so Maggie's sister literally drives up and sees her house burning down. It's so fucked up, and did not realize her sister was in there, but like still.
I mean, it's just horror upon horror for her, for the family, really.
Yes. So the next year, I'm kind of smushing a lot of different announcements together. The police have kind of information trickling out over various times.
Right.
But in 2018, they announced basically a be on the lookout, a bolo, if you will, comes out that announces this 3 suspects they're looking for with sketches.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Actually, I think the sketches trickle down later, but I just smash it together because it's boring to separate it. So.
Yeah, right. That's fair.
So there's sketches and descriptions of the vehicle, which is like a white or off-white van. The suspects are all white males in their 20s.
Oh, okay.
Whether it's teens or not, but they're young white males.
Yeah.
This bolo also says they may have burns or injuries from the fire. And it specifies what they stole. That's what I already said, the guns and whatnot, and shows pictures of like kind of what they looked like, but not the specific items.
Okay.
Which is very close. And then what's really weird is, first of all, this comes really late for people's taste. People's comfort, because they're like, oh, these guys are armed and dangerous, and this is like 6 months later, and people are like, what? Like, why
did you not tell us this before?
Like we really want this information earlier. But then the cops are like, oh, psych, that was a mistake. The public wasn't supposed to hear this information about this bolo. This was supposed to be internal, like to the other cops, but the public was not supposed to know.
Why would they not want the public to see the sketch of the fucking suspects? Like, what does that even... What?
I don't know, dude. I don't know. I'm doing a little dance right now to express that I am so confused by their behavior.
This is so dumb.
There had been a gag order actually on the case, which is quite unusual. And this release was a mistake.
Why is there a gag order on the case?
That's a really good question. And again, sometimes cops do like keep a lot, private or close to the chest, like for instance in the Delphi, exactly.
Yeah.
Like we don't know how those girls were killed, so there's lots of examples of that, but this seems like kind of like they were just bungling it. I can't quite tell.
Yeah, it's hard to say, huh?
Or they're investigating it really good and just not telling us about it.
Right. I mean, it's 2020, almost 2023. They're not doing that great if it's still unsolved,
Right.
Like,
that's true.
What are they waiting for?
So they also say that they believe her house was targeted, and this is like what everyone agrees on this, because the house is way the fuck in from the road.
Okay.
It's like a long winding driveway. It's pretty remote.
Okay.
You kind of have to know it was there. Also, why would they know that that stuff is there? Right.
Right. Yeah.
It's definitely targeted. And people have speculated that they targeted Maggie or not, which I'll talk about more in a second.
Mm-hmm.
In 2018, this is kind of comes to nothing. So I'm sorry to say it, but like it's too fucking weird to not say. So I have to say it. There's investigators announced that they investigated a connection to a very similar crime in Missouri in 2018, in which a house in a rural area, similarly kind of situated, was broken into with a 20-year-old young woman inside, and the robbers demanded she give them the code for their gun safe.
Okay.
The gun safe, and when she refused, she was set on fire.
Oh my God! Did she die?
She survived.
Yay! I mean, it's terrible.
It's terrible, but good.
I'm glad she did.
The two men who did this were arrested, and some people freak out because the sketches, at least of one of them, kind of look like one of the sketches from Maggie's case.
Okay.
However, these guys are later identified, and apparently there's no relation. Although, like, I don't know how much we trust anything the cops say in this case, right? At this point, they say there's no connection, but people are still kind of like note that in this case of like, what the fuck? And to me, I mean, even if this has nothing to do with it, to me, it still kind of like gives me an idea of what happened with Maggie, because they took the whole safe unlocked, right?
Right, because she was like, "Go fuck yourselves," probably.
Yeah, what if they were like, "Open this," and she was like, "No."
I mean, what if she may not have known the code is the other thing.
That
like,
too.
If she didn't know the fucking code, you know?
Exactly, that too. Or couldn't open it for whatever reason.
Right.
That gives you a sense of that struggle.
Right. Ugh.
So in May 2021, there's a slight development when the FBI announced that they've classified her murder as a potential, not official, but potential hate crime.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a representative when they announce this, says that nothing necessarily new or broke in the case, but by doing this announcement, they can access new resources and funding and like ways of searching that they couldn't before.
Okay.
But the family says like, that's fucking possible. We live in a rural, white as fuck area. This is also a time of like very strong anti-Asian hate crime, which we've seen a ton of, right?
Yeah.
And so the family are like, that's fucking possible as fuck, given the climate that we're in.
Right.
And they're also kind of a prominent Asian American family that's doing quite well.
Right.
You know, that's probably known to have money and guns.
People don't like that.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't know for sure if it is a hate crime, you know, or if they're just doing that for the investigative resources, but it's a fucking horrifying possibility.
Jesus.
It's fucked up. And the family gives like this really heartbreaking statement of like, yeah, we think this was done by someone that saw Maggie as less than human. And it's like, well, yeah, either way, fuck it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, obviously, but if it's based on her race, I wouldn't really be surprised, unfortunately.
No. And again, it's 3 white men. So it's like,
yeah. That's bad.
Yeah, it's horrible. And it does fit with the brutality and violence that went with her murder, and the fact that they went out of their way to kill her, right? Like they're not just burning the house down or trying to cover up evidence.
Right.
So again, the FBI and law enforcement are playing it really close to the chest. Like I said, they're not releasing a lot. And what's really frustrating is the family says they're also not getting a lot of information and not being communicated with.
That's
so people are
shitty.
Both really frustrated, but they have announced all these things over the years, and they apparently have a new task force as of like this year on it. So they are theoretically investigating. They're just not like telling anyone about it. And the FBI is on it, but as we know, they're not always helpful.
Right. No.
But they are.
That's good.
And the reward has been gradually increased. It started at like $20,000, and now between the FBI along with state and CBI, which is the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and local law enforcement agencies, the reward is $75,000.
Okay.
So
That's
just
good.
wanted to end on that, as I don't know if we have any Colorado listeners, look at the fucking sketches. I really hope there's a development in this case, because this is fucked up. And also these people sound like they would absolutely do this shit again. They might be like driving around cocky, like thinking they got away with it.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So this is anyone, and this was also broad daylight, by the way, when they did this. Like, this is scary as fuck. Like,
it is. Yeah.
So I hope they're found.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Fuck,
Sorry.
dude. No, that's just like, God damn, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
I hope they find them.
Yeah. Maggie was really sweet, and it's a really fucked up way to die. So.
Yeah. Jesus, dude. Wow. Okay. That was bleak as fuck, dude.
Yep. It's the theme of the week. Bleak as fuck.
It really is. Okay, I have another this story like has like been with me all week. It's like affected me. Like sometimes we do stories and they're like whatever. I mean, they're not whatever. Like they're always important, but like some of them stick with you more. And this one really fucking stuck with me a lot. So this is the story of Judy Malinowski.
Okay.
I'm just going to jump in. This took place in 2015 and kind of ended in 2017. But Judy was born August 26th, 1983. So she's like 8 months younger than me. So
wow,
kind of crazy. She grew up in Ohio. She was really close with her mother, who I believe was only 21 when Judy was born. But that's not that unheard of back then. Like I thought my parents were like old because they were like 26 and 27 when they had me. So, which is hilarious. Because Rory and I were 32 and 37 when we had Ollie, and like all the parents are like our age or older for the kids.
Yeah, that's more normal now.
More normal. Yeah,
there's a range.
Totally. Yes, absolutely. Anyway, so she was really close with her mom. She had 2 siblings, a brother and a sister. I think she was just close with her whole family. Julie grew up beautiful. Again, I don't always comment on that, but sometimes it feels important to the story. For instance, in high school, she was the homecoming queen. So on top of being like beautiful, she was super well liked. She was kind to everyone. Like everyone was her friend. She was just a really fucking wonderful person. She went on to go to Ohio State, which I guess is a really big deal for Ohioans. I don't know if that's how you say it. Ohioans, maybe?
Ohioans.
I don't know. I also don't know if she graduated or not, but I do know that she had a boyfriend and she ended up getting pregnant when she was either like 19 or 20. The 2 got married and they had their daughter, Kaylin. And soon after this, really unfortunately, at 21 years old, Judy was diagnosed with ovarian cancer.
Jesus. Yes. That is unusual, right?
Very unusual. Very, very much. She beat the cancer, which is amazing, and again became pregnant. Then again in 2006, while pregnant, she learned that the cancer had returned. So she decided to wait to treat it until after giving birth. But unfortunately, by that time, the cancer had become much more serious. And this is actually really common for women to often to find out they have cancer when they're pregnant, because that's when people are really like looking around down there. Yeah. And then a lot of women decide to continue the pregnancy and treat it after. So they're just living their lives pregnant, knowing there's cancer like in their body.
I actually know someone that happened to.
Yeah, it's a thing. Oh my God, what's her name? The really amazing artist, Margaret. She was married to Barry McGee. Margaret. Fuck, it's killing. She was a San Francisco artist. Fucking incredible. She gave birth, graduated from a master's program, and died of cancer all in the same week.
That's fucking insanity. Fucked up.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Fucking terrible. Anyway, so this is a common thing that happens to women, which is just kind of horrible to think of in itself. But she had her second daughter, Madison, and shortly thereafter, she underwent a full hysterectomy. Now, I can tell you, I have had a hysterectomy, but I kept my ovaries. And when you keep your ovaries, you keep your hormones. Everything kind of stays the same. So you still get like PMS, you still get all hungry and angry, but you never actually like have your period. Gotcha. When you take your ovaries, which obviously for Judy, she had to, because that's where the cancer was, that basically puts you into early menopause. So she's going through early menopause at like 24, 25 years old, something like that.
That's brutal.
Plus a full like surgery back then, like I had laparoscopic, so I had like 3 little cuts in my body. The healing process sucked, but it wasn't like terrible. But back then they just straight up like cut your stomach open, you know. So the healing process is terrible. All of it is terrible. So, you know, and also this is like in 2006, 2007, nobody cares about women, you know. No. Still a problem.
No, they still don't. No. There's all kinds of medical things that are fucked. That's a whole other rant.
Exactly. But it does tie in here. So, you know, and obviously this was a very, very painful thing for her to go through. So her doctor prescribed her OxyContin for the pain. And as with not caring about how women, you know, handle pain or felt in surgery or whatever, doctors weren't really tuned into how addictive this shit was back then.
Yeah.
And they're just pushing the drugs for the pharmaceutical companies, right? So Judy was in a lot of pain, which is completely understandable. So she continued taking the pills as prescribed. And at one point, she told her mother, Bonnie, that she thought she was becoming addicted. She said, Mom, I feel like I need them. Like, I need to take them. Like, it's not just for the pain anymore. It's like, I need them. And her mom was like, follow the doctor's orders. I'm sure it's safe to take these. Your doctor wouldn't prescribe them if not. Because again, why would you not trust your doctor? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And separate rant, I want everybody to remember a doctor can graduate medical school with a C average, which means they get 30% of everything wrong.
Also, in America, our shit is making our shit for profit also creates corrupt doctors because
absolutely.
Also, read Dreamland by, I think, Sam Quinones. I read that. He's one of those amazing guys from Dateline who I love. And he there's a lot of books about the opiate crisis, but holy shit. Also around 2006 to 2010, that was the golden age of overprescribing opiates.
It was. And
that was the
Judy.
peak of it. Yeah.
Yep. And here's Judy right in the middle of that.
Yeah.
So I've read some differing things about what happened next, but she either lost her insurance, which is a whole other rant that ties into this, or her doctor was like, you no longer need these for pain. But either way, her meds were no longer available to her. And they're super expensive, so it's not like she could go out and buy them or whatever.
Yeah.
So if it was the insurance, then that's just a failure of our system there. But if it was the doctor, then it is what it is. So, first we're getting people addicted, then we're removing their access and not providing them support to get over these addictions. So what happens next is what happened and happens to many, many people. Judy was so addicted to the meds that even when they were taken away, she found a way to get them illegally. Yeah. And when these pills became too expensive because they're fucking expensive, she turned to a much cheaper alternative, heroin. So she at first kept her addiction mostly under control. She was really good about taking her daughters to stay with her mom when she was using. And her daughters were staying with her mom because she and her first husband had actually split up, which we'll talk about more in a minute. But he pretty much just seems fully out of the picture. They break up and he's just kind of gone from what I can tell.
Yeah.
It's either Judy or her mom. The girls are never with their dad. I have a feeling maybe he just had a freak out. I can't believe I've been married with kids since I was 19. I mean, I don't know. That's my speculation, but I don't know. Yeah. So her addiction began in 2007, around that time. And eventually, after a few years, she was able to kick her habit. And when I say a few, it's 2014, 2015. So it did take a while. It was a long battle.
As it usually does. Yeah.
Yes. She had actually lost custody of her daughters and they were in her mother's care. Okay. And Bonnie, her mother, is an amazing, amazing woman. And she, she did everything she could to help, but she was also really careful not to enable Judy. So at a certain point, she even stopped allowing Judy to see her daughters because she was like, I'm not exposing them to you and your addiction. This is not good for anybody. Oh. So then Judy gets sober. And I do want to say, make it really clear that I will never say this person, that person got clean ever again. Because that's a connotation that when you're a drug addict, you're dirty.
I hadn't heard that. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Getting clean. I'm clean from the drugs because people who take drugs are dirty. But that's not really fair because Judy is fucking homecoming queen. She's a married mother of 2. She's doing everything right in her life and she still fell victim to addiction.
And also fucking Purdue and Sackler, those motherfuckers literally sat in a lab and engineered that shit to be as addicting as humanly possible.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
It's not anyone's fault who got addicted.
And I think it's really important to change the language around this shit because it really changes the way you think about it. Because we see addicts on the street and we have really negative feelings about them that are directed at them instead of being directed at the system.
Yeah, and there's so much pejorative language around that too, junkie or crackhead or all those horrible terms.
Yeah, it's really fucked up. So this story really kind of, my mom and my brother are fucking gnarly addicts. So it's not like I don't know this shit already, but this put it in a different perspective for me because it's outside of my family. It's a good family. You know what I mean? So,
right.
So you won't hear me say she got clean because I don't think that's a way to put it. Having an addiction is not a moral failing. That is just something that everybody needs to know. So after this first time getting sober, things start to take a turn for the worse again when Judy ends up dating a man named Michael Slager. Now, Judy and Michael had known each other for years, since around 2007. Remember how I said she and her husband divorced? This is because Judy found out that he had been cheating on her, and the person who told her was none other than Michael Slager.
Okay.
So you think like, oh, that's nice that he let her know or whatever. But I'm pretty sure the reason he did it was very fucking self-serving because he'd always had a thing for Judy. So, and Judy wasn't really interested in him because one, I'm sorry, again, I don't normally say things like this, but he's disgusting.
Right. And that's also a weird way to get to someone. Like,
yeah, it's not exactly
slightly.
like the best way to do it. But I think she wasn't interested because also she was married, which, you know, I mean, fuck her ex-husband, he's a dick. But like, obviously, like Michael took care of that. He's like, how do I get this guy out of the picture? And there you go. But also, like, he dated a bunch of her friends and she just like was not into him. So he told her over and over he was interested, and she was like, that's nice, but I'm not interested. Thanks. They fell out of touch mostly while she was battling her addiction. But as she recovered, Michael, I think, found her on Facebook and reached out sometime in late 2014. By March of 2015, they were dating. And this was not good. So, and I'll tell you why. Let's talk about Michael for a moment here. This fucking scumbag, like complete fucking piece of shit, at this time already had a criminal record a mile long. Some of his crimes included passing bad checks, receiving stolen property, robbery, burglary, but also kidnapping and at least 2 counts of sexual assault.
Uh-oh. Okay. We kind of escalated there.
Yes, I went from low to high.
Okay.
Yeah, he also got in trouble quite a few times for parole violations for not registering as a sex offender because he fucking was one. And also not like reporting his change of address, like things like that, like trying to skirt under the system. One of the reasons the two fell out of touch, in fact, is because Michael was in prison for most of the time between 2007 and 2014 because he's a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
And as such, because he's trash, he has a lot of connections to dealers. Okay. And also, and listen, I am not judging addiction, but I am judging people who push hard drugs. If you are a pill pusher, if you are the type of person selling, you know, that kind of shit, you're not a good person. There's a difference.
Well, and it seems like he's not just doing that. He's also a piece of shit for many other reasons.
Oh, so. Many other reasons.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is, like, he wasn't a drug user. But a really interesting tidbit.
That's even worse if you're not doing it because of your own addiction. Like I can see like you sell like just to fund your own addiction, you know, but it's even worse if you're doing it just to prey on people.
Yes. I think a lot of the time drug dealers in this, at this level, it's not, you don't get high on your own supply, you know? Yeah. So anyway, I mean, some do, but anyway. So really interesting thing here. Even though Michael didn't use, one of his ex-girlfriends had actually died of a heroin overdose. And I'm not saying that he was involved, but I'm just saying it's interesting.
It is.
So he and Judy finally get together. She is sober at this time. And Michael is an extremely controlling man. Like to the point where he's putting a tracking device thing on Judy's phone. Just immediately begins with emotional abuse. But also gets her back on drugs because he's supplying them for her. And he's doing this so he can control her.
Yeah, no, he hates that she has her life together. She's going on the right track.
Yeah, he wants her weak and vulnerable so he can control her. And also he's the one getting her the drugs, right? So they start dating in March 2015. Their relationship comes to a horrific end in August. So this is like a 4-month relationship or so, 5, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, really fucking short. Hold on. April, May, June, July, August. 5 months.
Okay.
Math.
Yeah.
I know my months. So there are points at which, like, even in her state of addiction, Judy knows that she needs to get away from him. He's like physically abusive. He's emotionally abusive. So she and her mother are in constant contact, and Bonnie still has the kids. And at certain points, Judy asks her mother for help getting away from Michael. She texts her mother that she's hiding. Please get Michael out of her apartment. Judy had this apartment, but it was in Bonnie's name because she needed help getting back on her feet. And so she's texting her mom, like, have them get him out of my apartment. Like, I don't want him there. Because she broke things off with him and he was stalking her. He'd show up at her apartment and refused to leave. So she eventually went and hid out and stayed at a hotel to get away from him. So Bonnie calls the police and she's like, this guy is in my daughter's apartment and he won't leave and she wants him to leave. And they refuse to help. They're like, well, she needs to go and tell him. And if she won't go there and tell him to leave, then we can't go remove him. And Bonnie's like, my daughter is scared for her life. Like,
removing people is your job, cops.
Right. It's like, okay, so this woman should go to her apartment by herself where this convicted kidnapper, sex offender, violent criminal won't leave and ask him nicely to leave. And then if that doesn't work out well, then you'll come. Like, come on.
No.
Bonnie also tries to get help from her daughter. And this is just one of the most infuriating things and just the epitome of what's wrong with our society. She tries to get help for Judy as a victim of domestic violence, but the people who run the program, and I do believe it was like government funded, used to help her because she's an addict. Because if you're an addict, you can't possibly be a victim.
Oh my
Because
God.
anything that happens to you,
They're
put on yourself.
victimized even more, if anything. Like,
but that's the thing, and that's why the way we talk about this needs to change. The way we think about this needs to change, because everybody goes, well, you can't help addicts because they're doing something wrong. So it doesn't matter if they're being beaten or murdered or whatever.
Yeah, and it also goes hand in hand with like a kind of victims and domestic abuse stories that we see, even on true crime shows. It's like, you don't want to hear about poor people or people with, drug addiction, because it's like they're seen as like that's their fault. They're less than human.
Right. And I think that's really why I kind of brought up all of the really great things about Judy to this point, because those things exist for most people. Most people who have addictions didn't like come out of the womb addicted and a horrible bad person, It's just the whole thing makes me really mad. So anyway, they have no help. Michael won't leave Judy alone. He keeps giving her drugs. And very sadly, this works because addiction's really hard and this is not her fault. But basically, she has no recourse. So she keeps getting pulled back into him, right?
Yeah.
Pulled back in. Society's turned their back on her. So she's being beaten. She's being emotionally abused. She's being fed drugs. It's just terrible. At some point, Judy suffers an overdose. She does survive, but it scared her enough to get her to want to be sober again.
Yeah.
She wasn't allowed to see her daughters at this point again, and she just realized it was time to get her life together. She's 31 years old at this point. It's not too late by any means. It's never too late, but especially not, And, this, of course, is not good news for Michael because he knows that means he's going to lose his control over her and she's going to get away from him. So he was pissed. And like I said, they were already like on their way to breaking up, and he knew that this was going to be the final straw. So August 1st, 2015, Judy is at the rehab center. She's talking to her mom, or I'm sorry, August 2nd, 2015. She's at the rehab center. She's talking to her mom on the phone. Her mom's like, I love you. I'm so proud of you. I think they're texting. And Judy's like, can you bring me some stuff? I want some stuff because I can have things here. And her mom's like, yes, I'll bring you all those things, but I'm not bringing you cigarettes because Judy's a smoker and her mother doesn't approve, which I understand.
Fair. Although that is a huge thing, I think, for like recovering drug addicts. They have to have their one vice thing.
Exactly. And, there's a lot of, that's funny because that's what I'm talking about next. Judy's like, I'm going to go get cigarettes then because I want to smoke. And this rehab let people smoke, which I think is really smart because that can be like the deciding factor for some people.
Yeah.
They're like, look, I want to kick this, but you have to let me have cigarettes. Like I can't cold turkey everything. Like there's no fucking way. So I think that hard line that a lot of recovery places take is kind of detrimental because cigarettes do that later. Get them off the hard stuff. I mean, cigarettes are really bad for you.
Obviously, I also know like 6 people who got clean off of hard or sober off of hard drugs from just smoking weed. California sober, as they call it. And like, I think there's a stigma against that, but it's like, hey, if they're not doing meth, like,
right, that's way fucking better. Yeah. And there's a whole stigma around everything. Like, oh, well, if you still smoke weed, then you're not actually sober. And it's like, well, right, but they're not doing these drugs that are super harmful to them.
Yeah,
and
yes, if they're not like
harmful,
if their life is not ruined by said weed, then okay.
Exactly. And again, cigarettes cause cancer. They're fucking terrible.
But priorities, one at a time.
Exactly. One thing at a time. So she wants to get cigarettes. She wants to say goodbye to her kids one more time. And also she wants to get high one more time. This is something that people do a lot before going to rehab.
I've watched every episode of Intervention, so I know.
Yeah, they all show up high.
Yes.
I was talking to Rory about that, and people may not know this. I don't think he minds if I tell people, but he went to rehab when he was 17. And he was like, oh my God, I was up for like 4 days before I knew I was going to get on the plane because I was just like doing all the drugs I could, like knowing I was going to go get sober. So anyway, she's like, it's kind of like one last hurrah. She's actually at the rehab center, but wants to leave to go do these final things. Yeah. Somehow she ends up with Michael. She probably called him, and that's not, again, it's not her fault.
No.
She's victimized. This is just how it goes. So he picks her up from the rehab center in his truck. Immediately, they're fighting. They're fucking screaming at each other. They go get drugs. She gets high. They keep fighting. And they're driving to a Speedway gas station to pick up cigarettes for her. And they're yelling and screaming at each other. Michael goes into the Speedway Center to buy cigarettes. Judy gets out of the car and walks around to the back of the Speedway station. It's debated why she did this. Some people think that she was actually trying to hide from him, like get away from him, because he had already hit her while they were in the car. I don't know. What I do know is he beat her in the past, so I wouldn't be surprised. But Michael gets back in her truck, goes looking for her. He's fucking pissed because, like, how dare she get out of the truck? How dare she leave? You know, he finds her behind the station. And to clarify, like, it's not behind, like, the station butts up to like an alley with like a fence. It's like one of those stations, like, I don't know if you ever like take a road trip where like both the front and the back has parking. Both the front and the back.
Yeah.
You can enter the building from either side.
Yeah.
So it's like the back, but it's not, it's like a giant parking lot and it's like a circle around the store. Yeah. So they're in the back, but there's like people around. It's the middle of the day. It's super busy. So Michael finds her and he throws his truck into park to where like it actually got people's attention because he did it so like violently, right? The two begin screaming at each other. And I guess Judy had like a styrofoam cup full of soda and she throws it at Michael.
Okay.
She throws the whole cup and it hits him and gets soda all over him.
Good.
And he is enraged. And this is the word that I've seen written and heard. And I was like, I'm not going to use that word when I cover this part, but like, there's no better word.
Yeah.
Like he sees like the devil.
Yeah.
Right?
He can beat up this poor woman, but like not the soda. How dare you?
Yeah. Well, first, she's not getting back in the truck like he's fucking telling her to do. Second, you know, I mean, she got out to begin with. She refuses to get back in and now she's thrown a soda. Yeah. So he goes back to his truck and he has like the truck bed open and he has a gas can in there. And he pulls it out. And it's so dangerous to have gas in a gas can driving around, but whatever.
Yeah, okay.
But he takes it. Judy sees him coming and she tries to run, but she trips and falls to the ground. She's on the ground and she starts screaming, I'm sorry. I'll get in the truck. I'm so sorry. Please stop. I'll do whatever you want. Please stop. And he doesn't listen. He stands over her and pours gas all over her. It gets into her mouth. It goes down her throat. That alone can seriously injure or kill you.
Yeah.
Like I said, she's apologizing. She's begging him to stop, telling him she'll get in the truck. She'll do whatever. And he doesn't care. He doesn't.
Yeah. It's past that point for him.
It is. Michael goes back to his truck, grabs a lighter. Meanwhile, Judy's on the ground trying to cough up the gasoline in her mouth and throat.
Yeah, because that's already toxic.
Yeah. And so she's not like running away because she's injured.
Yeah.
She's on the ground with poison in her body. He comes back and he sets her on fire. And then he stands there and watches her burn.
She's in a parking lot?
She's in a parking lot with a ton of witnesses. And there are a bunch of calls to 911.
Oh,
and I have heard some of them.
This is the daytime?
Yes. This is the middle of the fucking day.
Oh my God.
And one woman calls and she's like, a man just set a woman on fire. And the 911 office or operator's like, what? Can you stop yelling? And it's like, no, you can't stop fucking yelling. He's extremely fucking traumatized.
All those people just got PTSD too. Like, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So about 30 seconds in, while all these calls are coming in, Michael goes back to his truck, gets a fire extinguisher, and puts her out.
What?
Meanwhile, so he extinguishes her, but he lets her burn for a good half a minute at least.
Oh my God.
So all these people are calling in, they're crying, they're seeing this whole thing. You cannot imagine living that. Paramedics come and take her to the hospital. They also take Michael because he suffered burns because there was gas on him as well from his crazy pouring all over her.
Yeah.
The police called Judy's mom, Bonnie. They tell her Judy was in an accident and to come to the hospital. When she arrives, Michael is there waiting for her. And
why isn't he arrested?
Well, because in these moments, nobody knew what happened. He was injured in the fire. Judy was injured in the fire. They don't know. So the police.
But then they fucking witnesses saw him do it.
But they took him to the hospital. So they didn't, they just rushed him to the hospital because he had burns. So Michael's there. It was an accident. He's saying he was lighting her cigarette. He didn't mean to. You know, police are investigating. Obviously, these 911 calls are plainly stating that they saw him light her on fire. So
yeah, if you were lighting her cigarette, then why did her whole body light on fire?
Right. So the story doesn't fly. You know, it does not fly. I'll tell you that he does get arrested. So Judy is in the hospital. She's burned over 95% of her body, including the inside of her mouth and her throat.
Ugh.
Her hair, eyebrows, and eyelashes are all completely gone. She lost both ears, multiple fingers on both hands, all of her skin. 70% of her body had 3rd and 4th degree burns. And 4th degree burns are the highest level of burns. They have the potential to be life-threatening. They're the most severe and deepest injury, affecting all layers of the skin, muscles, tendons, and bones. So this is 70% of her body. So it's not looking good.
No.
Doctors tell Bonnie that Judy has hours to live and that if she flatlines, they don't recommend resuscitating her. Now, as we all know from this story so far, I haven't talked about her too much, but Bonnie is a mama bear.
Yeah.
She is protecting those grandchildren. She was there. She raised a good, wonderful woman. She raised 2 other wonderful people. Obviously, what happened to Judy was not in anyone's control. Obviously, again, not a moral failing can happen to anyone. And she says to them, you are not letting my daughter die. If she flatlines, you will revive her. You don't get to decide. So the doctors do what they can. They induce a coma. So she's in a coma for 7 months. And over this time, they perform 59 different surgeries, including multiple skin grafts. In this 7 months, she flatlines 7 times.
Oh my God.
7 times, they bring her back to life. Finally, after 7 months, Judy wakes up and she remembers everything.
Holy shit.
Yep.
That's like impossible. Like the odds are not in her favor.
They're not.
At all.
Everything about this case is like unprecedented and amazing.
Yeah.
So during this time, definitely Michael was absolutely arrested and charged, but he was not charged with attempted murder. He was only charged with aggravated arson and felonious assault.
No,
Yes.
this was a murder.
And he was given 11 years.
No.
I know. That's how much they value the lives of victims of domestic violence.
Like she's so almost dead.
It's clearly attempted murder. So whatever. He's in prison serving his time. And meanwhile, Judy is able to see her family, spends time with her daughter. She does a lot of rehab. And again, she gets to tell her story. This is great. But in reality, Judy was also in excruciating pain from the moment she woke 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
I had read that she even asked to end her suffering more than once in the beginning. But I do believe they were able to get her on a pain management schedule that helped her to feel comfortable. She wasn't super with it all the time because she was on fucking opiates, which is ironic and terrible.
But this is like actually opiates is for this. This is like
what it's for. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually for people in this level of pain. Yeah. Yeah. Not for like, oh, my back aches sometimes.
Right. Right. So it was, amazing. Her family was deeply religious. So I think that they would say that it was a miracle that she, came back to life. I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I understand that it does.
I think it's her fucking willpower. It's what I think it is.
Right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't like the best existence. And what was worse is that the doctors told her and Bonnie that Judy's not going to survive long term. Yeah. The fact that she was alive at all was astounding and amazing, but it was not something her body was not going to sustain. Her body was slowly shutting down.
Yeah.
So what this means beyond the obvious part where like a young mother who has suffered endlessly in her fucking life is going to die is that when she does, Michael will then be charged with murder. So Michael and his defense team aren't super worried because witnesses can be discredited. His story remained the same, that it was an accident. But now they have Judy and they say to Judy, you know what? We're going to do something we've never done before in the history of our legal system. Can you record a deposition and we're going to use it? You're going to testify in your own upcoming murder trial.
For when because she knows she's going to die.
She's going to die.
Holy shit.
And Judy says, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. And you guys can watch this on YouTube. It's heart. Like, I'm getting like chills thinking about it. There's no fucking words.
It's amazing she can talk.
And she can. And she sounds good. Like she has a lovely voice. Like it's like when you hear her talk, you can tell it's very difficult, but whatever they did in recovery, like, she sounds like a normal person.
They set her up so she could function to some extent.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the prosecutors are down for this. His defense team, they try to have it thrown out for being unconstitutional because they're like, well, we can't cross-examine her. And the judge is like, no, you go ahead and cross-examine her during the deposition. So they set up like a Skype. And on January 26th, 2017, Judy gives her testimony. And one of the worst things about this is that she had to do it with no pain medication because they didn't want her to be out of it.
Under
She
the
had to be
influence.
fully,
Yeah.
she'd be fully awake and aware. And she agreed. So she's sitting there
In pain.
can't walk. You know, her body is just on fire all the time.
Ugh.
And she agrees to go off her pain meds completely and do this. And she says, the first thing that you can hear when she's talking is she says, "My name is Judy Malinowski and I'm ready to testify." And it's unbelievable, the story she tells, and she's very, very truthful. Now, there is something called Judy's Foundation that I think her mother started, and Bonnie does paint a little bit rosier picture of Judy, and I get it. Like,
right, of the drug stuff. And
yeah, I mean, God, I mean, she, you know, has the right to do that. But I think the thing that I really loved about Judy's testimony is that she didn't shy away from her addiction. She didn't shy away from the fact that, yeah, I threw a soda at him. Yes, I was an addict. Like, yes, these things are true. And she was so strong and so honest, and it was so incredible. And then the defense comes in and they ask her bullshit ass questions like, why didn't you run? Like, this is your fault. And they go in extensively into her addiction. Like, what the fuck does that have to do with this man pouring gas on her and lighting her on fire?
Like, that defense attorney that day should have just like quit.
Like, how do you fucking
They
sleep
just
at
should have been
night?
like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this job today. Like, they should have. No, that's it. Like, how do you sleep at night cross-examining this fucking woman who clearly her entire existence and her body and her willpower is driving her to be alive just to do this shit, just to say
and
this
you're
thing.
trying to discredit her by making this her fault because she
why
has
didn't
an
you
addiction
run?
and she didn't run away. It's like, maybe because she was coughing up gas. I don't know. Like, fuck, man.
She didn't fucking expect to have gasoline on her throat. How about that?
Right. Have a fucking piece of shit light her on fire. So this does not go well for the defense. Obviously, their name is mud. They're horrible people. But this deposition gets recorded. And very unfortunately, on June 27th, 2017, Judy passes away. Now, I've heard that she passed away peacefully, that a day prior, she said that she saw angels. And I hope that her last moments were like perfect and peaceful and beautiful. And I hope she did see angels, because what the fuck, you know?
Yeah.
She deserves something.
I hope she was on a soaring cloud of morphine and pain meds.
Yeah. And just not feeling any pain, because it just feels like, what happened that she got dealt these cards, you know? So he gets charged with murder pretty shortly thereafter. And I don't think he was aware that she had testified. And so he was kind of feeling, you know, he pled not guilty. And then he kind of realized they have this testimony, and they were in Ohio. They have the death penalty and they were going for it. So
I mean, not good, because I'm not pro death penalty, but I also hate this guy right now.
Yeah. So one day before the trial was set to start, he changed his plea to guilty, and he was put in prison for life with no parole. And I do want to mention that Judy said she did not want him to be given the death penalty, that all she wanted was for him to admit what he did and to go to prison for the rest of his life. Which to me, if I knew that I was dying and that somebody caused that, I would have a real hard time saying that. And
no,
so
she's a just it testifies to what kind of person she is.
Exactly. Like, through and through, she's just a wonderful person. So he goes to prison forever. Judy's Foundation is created, and it helps victims of domestic violence and abuse, also people with addiction issues. They are there not to judge. They are there to help you. They have resources. If you know anybody who needs them, reach out. They also, in Ohio, put together Judy's Law, which means anybody who disfigures someone else, like a partner, I believe, using an accelerant like lighter fluid or gasoline, will get an automatic 6 years tacked on to whatever sentence they're given. Okay. Unfortunately, this does not apply to other weapons like knives or hammers, but hopefully it's a start in the right direction. It's something that brings attention to victims of domestic violence and how serious it is, and that 11 years is absolutely not enough for lighting someone on fire.
I mean, it's the wrong charge to begin with. How they started out, it was attempted murder.
Right. So this is another law that kind of helps bring up the seriousness of what is going on with victims of domestic violence. You cannot blame them for what's happening to them. It's mental, it's emotional, and it's physical. So I also want to say that I'm a creep. So I snooped on everybody's Facebook, and her daughters are growing up. One of them just went to college. They seem very happy. I think Bonnie is just an amazing grandmother and protector. And most importantly, and this really sucks, like 3 weeks ago, there's an MTV documentary that came out called The Fire That Took Her, and it is about this. And it's with her family. They have text messages, they have interviews. I watched the trailer and cried. So
oh my God.
It's unfortunately not out anywhere. The reason it sucks is because it's not out anywhere till spring of 2023.
Okay.
So it will be coming out in theaters. I encourage everybody to go watch it. But only go if you want to like sob openly with strangers. You'll probably also be sobbing. But this is just such an inspirational, terrible, but ultimately inspiring story.
Well, and I bet Bonnie will be keeping like Judy's memory alive, and also those daughters can like at least like know that their mom was a fucking badass to
I mean they
endure.
testified to get the Judy's Law passed. Like they were all very involved, so they know that, I mean her daughter was I think 13, 14, something like that when she died, so maybe even a little older. So I mean they were very aware of what was going on.
And I know I said she like lived to testify, but also she probably lived to like she wanted to say goodbye to her daughters
with her
and,
family. And she got a lot. She got a lot more time with them. She had almost a full year of being awake and being able to see her family. So,
God,
a fucking horrifying story, but ultimately, really inspiring.
Oh my God, you almost got me. I'm almost gonna cry.
I know, like, it's so. Don't watch that trailer, Diva. It's.
Oh my God, I want to watch her deposition, and I'm like, I can't do it. I'm gonna actually cry.
Yeah, it's rough. She is a fucking rock star, man. Like, goodness. Okay, so that's it. I'm actually really happy I got to cover that story.
Oh my God. No, I'm glad I like kind of like threw it at you because it looked good from like just the headline.
Yeah,
of, like,
I'm so glad.
All I knew was like woman testified at her own murder trial. And I was like, that sounds crazy. Yeah. So I'm glad you did it.
Yeah, and guys, I'll remind everybody when the movie comes out to go see it because it needs support. They need to get the word out.
We should do like a Patreon occasional like true crime and TV and movie review.
Yeah, we should. That'd be good. I know we've said that before. Anyway, okay, so there it is. Now, we have to pick next week, and I've already done it because we're in November.
Yes.
So we've got some holidays coming up, including Thanksgiving. So in true Twisted Listers fashion, being who we are, I have decided that we should cover missing and murdered Indigenous women.
November is also Indigenous Heritage Month. That doesn't sound right. I feel like I'm saying the month title wrong, but
yes,
it's that month.
Yeah. So I just think that rather than celebrating white supremacy, we should talk about some of the victims of it in a real way. So it's gonna be another fucking downer, guys.
I think the MMIW Day, like I forget what it's called, Remembrance Days in like May.
Yes,
but this is also, like I said, Native American History Heritage Month, and it's a subject that is near and dear to my fucking heart, many people's hearts, and it's fucked up. And also, looking up. I won't get too far into it because it's next week, but just looking up the amount of cases, I was like, "Whoo, we could do it." I mean, there are whole podcasts on just that, which is good, but
and we should shout some of them out. But
too many cases and too many options.
It's endless. It always sucks when you do a pretty rough list and you see all the options. It's hard.
Too many options. Yeah,
too many. So that's what we'll do next week. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Please like, rate, review, tell your friends, and until next week,
stay
off our